Hey and welcome back to another Roacher video on this channel, and today we are doing a preview for the Qatar Grand Prix in the world of Formula 1. So before I get into the video, make sure you do like, subscribe, turn the bell notifications on for more videos like this. Plenty of Formula 1 stuff coming out over the next couple of days. Of course, we have Qatar this weekend, so plenty of content coming out about that. And then we have a triple header when we go over to the Americas as well. So a lot of content to come from me and this channel. So let's get into it. So Qatar, we returned there after a year out, of course. We first raced there in 2021, where Lewis Hamilton took the pole and he took the race victory in that amazing year, that amazing battle between Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton for the World Championship. And we returned back there this year. Of course, 2022, we didn't have them on the calendar, mainly due to the fact that Qatar was hosting the FIFA World Cup, and of course that is a massive priority for a country of Qatar's size to bring tourists and to bring people into that country. It's really, really important. So it's totally understandable for them to focus on the World Cup. So first of all, I'm going to put the track map on the screen right now, and it's a very kind of odd looking kind of circuit. It's very much like a dinosaur footprint type circuit, and looking at the circuit characteristics, it's very much a high to medium speed circuit as well, so a very similar circuit to Suzuka. So do expect tyre wear to be an issue here again, and most likely a two-stop. Last time we was here in Qatar, almost saying last year, I mean 2 years ago. Last time we raced in Qatar, it was a two-stop strategy, mostly a medium hard or medium hard, depending on the tyres available to the drivers. So it's going to be very interesting when it comes to the strategy point of view and how well the drivers can hold on to those tyres. Of course, we looked at that in Suzuka with Alonso going onto those getting onto the new tyres quite early, into those hard tyres quite early, and he seemed to struggle for the rest of the race. So it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be interesting to see also if any driver does try the one stop. Of course, last time out in Suzuka, Ocon and Russell were the two drivers that tried it, and I don't know if it actually worked. I think it would have put them in the same position roughly anyway. So it'd be interesting to see some of those try it. But I'm expecting a very similar result, a similar race, because the track characteristics is very similar to Suzuka. I think Suzuka is much more of a driver's circuit where it's much more hard work for the driver to put in. But I think Qatar, the corners are much more simple. They kind of just flow much easier, and it's not really as physically demanding. There's normally just kind of one line into the lot of the circuit, whereas Suzuka, it's much more kind of driver's circuit. So there's going to be a difference there, but I think the high speed, medium speed nature of this circuit will play into the hands of other teams over others. So I'm going to put some stats on the screen here. So it's a 57 lap Grand Prix, this one. We're going to be doing this around about the 120s, low 120s in qualifying and in the race as well. Of course, we have a sprint race this weekend as well. So in terms of teams, how fast they can go, maybe not as quick as we did in 2021, mainly due to the fact that we don't have one practice session. So there's not enough time for the teams to fine-tune their cars, because we go into Park Ferme after FP1 on Friday and straight into qualifying. So don't expect the cars to be as fast as we saw them in 2021. And of course, the regulations don't allow them to be as fast anyway. So just something to look out for. So in qualifying, Lewis Hamilton set the lap record around here. Of course, we've only raced here once with a 1:28.27 compared to Max Verstappen 1:23, 1:96 in the race. So 3 seconds off in the race, and obviously Max Verstappen went for the fastest lap last year in Qatar to help that and take the championship all the way till the end. So it's going to be very interesting, this race. We've only raced here once, so in terms of the data and the knowledge of this circuit, it'd be quite low. And the fact that there's the high degradation here as well, the high speed, medium speed nature of the circuit as well. It's going to be very interesting to know. As far as I'm aware, I think they've refurbished a bit of the track. I think they've redone the curbs. So the curbs may be a bit more flatter and not as brutal. And I think they resurfaced the track as well. So it's going to be a new grip for the cars. It's going to be something to look out for this weekend as well, and hopefully it is going to be much better. So yeah, something to look out for. And with the high speed nature of the circuit, we are going to be having the C1, C2, C3 compound of tyres to compensate for the high tyre wear that we will have around here, very similar to Suzuka. So I think we would expect the McLarens and the Red Bulls to do well. They normally, well, especially McLaren, do well on the lower compound of tyres, especially when we went to Silverstone as well, when that was at the C1, C2, C3. So do expect McLaren to be up there as well, and maybe the Ferraris and Mercedes to struggle. But we'll go into that later on into the video. I'm going to put the schedule up on the screen now as well. It's going to be a much later one than what we're used to. Of course, we're out of the European leg of the season. We're now moving towards the Asia and the American leg. Of course, we have the sprint race this weekend as well. So qualifying will be on the Friday. Qualifying is on at 6 o'clock UK time, and the race is going to be on at 6 o'clock as well on the Sunday. Because the sprint, we have that all day on Saturday, 2 o'clock for the sprint shootout, and for the actual sprint race it'll be on at 6:30, and practice on the Friday as well will be on at 2:30. The weather is going to be really hot, as we know, in that part of the world. I think during the day, like midday, it's going to be around about 38 degrees, which is mental. So of course we're going to be racing later. It'll be much cooler, but it's still going to be so hot. The air and the track temperature is going to be so warm around here. It's going to be around about 31 degrees ish when we are on track though, which is slightly hotter than what it was in Suzuka as well. So with the added element of the tyre wear and the high weather temperatures as well, could play a factor into actually pushing it into a 2-stop, maybe a 3-stop. There was a possibility of a 3-stop last race, but I think the tyres were able to hold on much better than what we actually thought. And in the end, some drivers was doing the 1-stop, so I guess it wasn't as bad as what we actually predicted and what it normally is. But I think Qatar, there will definitely be more doing the 2-stop. 100%. But could there be 3 stops on the cards? Maybe, but it's really rare to see 3 stops nowadays. It's almost impossible. So I think it would be just a standard 2-stop, which is going to be really interesting to see. So let's go through the last time we was here in Qatar. Of course, Lewis Hamilton taking the race victory, Max Verstappen in 2nd place, followed up by Fernando Alonso in 3rd place. His first podium since, was it 2013? Back then, which is a long time for him to wait in that Alpine. Of course, being chased by Perez in the last closing laps, and Ocon having a really good race there as well, finishing P5, with good points for Alpine, and maybe they could do the same here, go well again here with Ocon and Gasly. And the famous team radio was Fernando telling Ocon to defend like a lion, and to be fair, Ocon did put up a decent fight in the end. Apart from that, the race was a fairly boring one. Lewis really did walk away with the victory quite easily on the pole, and just controlled the race there in and there on. I think he probably led every single lap as far as I'm aware. But one thing to look out for with the tyre wear is that we had 3 punctures there last year. The 2 Williams drivers had a puncture, Latifi and George Russell, and Valtteri Bottas, of course, got a puncture as well. He was going really long on these hard compound tyres, and it just went for him. With the refurbishing of the curbs, they're probably not going to be as harsh and as demanding, so that could also help with the tyre wear and stopping these punctures, because they're quite dangerous. It's not nice to see as well. So how will this Grand Prix look this time in 2023? As I said, I think it's going to be very similar to Suzuka in terms of the teams who are where they are actually placed. It's a very similar circuit, I would say, but it's less demanding. So I think teammates will be much more closer here than they would be in Suzuka, where Suzuka is much more of a driver's circuit. It's heavily dependent on what the driver can do. And as we see, Max Verstappen absolutely walking it compared to Sergio Perez, for example. And the gaps between Lewis and Russell in qualifying and Leclerc and Sainz in qualifying, the 3/10 difference, it'll probably be a lot closer this time around in Qatar. So in terms of the circuit's characteristics being a high to medium speed circuit, do expect the Red Bull to run well around here. Max Verstappen will absolutely walk it around here, I do believe. I don't think there's any excuse for Perez not to do well around here. He doesn't really do well at the the Suzukas, the Silverstone type circuits, but I still think it's a circuit, and with the card that Perez does have, he should be able to be there with Max and claim another podium, a P2. But a team that could be in the mix is the McLarens. Again, at these sort of circuits, they do well. They have really good downfalls, which is going to fare well around here. There's a fair few little bits of straights which they may struggle on, but just in general, just having the high downfalls around here will highly benefit the McLarens. Of course, having the C1, C2, C3 compounded tyres will really benefit the McLarens, being kind of having the more cooler type tyres as well. So expect both McLarens to do really well and be up there in qualifying, fighting maybe for the pole, but I think Max Verstappen will just be too far out of reach. But with the less qualifying time and the less time for the team to tune their cars, it could be a chance and an opportunity for the McLarens to slip in a pole position and maybe do well in the race, because it's more about who comes in with the best setup, and in that practice it's just tuning things up and tightening things up, because you don't have a lot of time to change things up. You only have 1 hour of running. And last year there was 49 overtakes, which is actually a decent amount. So do expect there to be overtakes going through the grid, and chances to manoeuvre as well. So overtaking isn't that much of an issue here. And with these cars meant to be closer for racing as well, and the midfield being fairly close this season as well, do expect some sort of changes and mix up in the midfield as well. Some opportunities for a Williams or an AlphaTauri to pick up some points as well, which is going to be really interesting to see that midfield fight and how that can affect the race. Because of course, the closer they are together, it stops the lead drivers taking a free pit stop, which is what happened in Singapore, for example, where certain drivers just couldn't pit. The Ferraris couldn't pit. It was Monza, where the cars were fairly close, and it got to a point where Verstappen overtook Carlos Sainz, and Sainz couldn't pit because if he pits, he goes into a bunch of traffic. So maybe that could be an element here. We have to wait and see, of course. So as I said, if Verstappen will probably dominate, McLaren's going to be behind. We're looking to the Ferraris now, with that great power unit, really good on the brakes as well, that great acceleration out of corners. There is straights here, but they may struggle in the high-speed corners. They did okay at Suzuka at a high-speed circuit where they normally struggle, but I think that some upgrades that they brought in recently have really kind of helped with that, and with of course this track being a decent place to overtake as well, I think Ferrari will be fine, and I think they'll be around about where they was last time, maybe kind of a P4, P5 sort area. And I think there's the same with Mercedes as well, a real unknown with that car. And it's one race they're good, one race they're not, And at the start of the season, they were really good at these high-speed circuits, and they were really poor at the low speed. And now, since around about Belgium time, it's really been the other way around, where they've been really good at the low-speed circuits, but not so great at the high speed. So a really kind of confusing car for the engineers to get around, and that's why race by race they don't have a clue where they're going to be. So I do expect Ferrari and Mercedes to kind of be in and around each other like Suzuka. Of course, them two are fighting for the P2 in the Constructors' Championship. Ferrari are really pushing for it as well, and so are Mercedes. So it's going to be a really interesting fight coming here in Qatar, and also the battle between Aston Martin and the McLarens for P4. And I expect going into Aston Martin, I expect Aston Martin to still be the 5th quickest team again, possibly in and around the Alpines like they was in Suzuka, which is a really confusing situation with how good the Alpine, which is a really confusing situation considering how good the Aston Martin was at the start of the season. in the hands of Fernando Alonso, and it's just slipped away. And Williams should be a lot better here as well, like there was in Suzuka, with the lot of straights that they can do well with a low drag that they do tend to run with that Williams. So expect Albon to be in and around the Q2 spots, maybe sneaking into that Q3, maybe just not, maybe just a bit off. I think the Albons will just have the pace over the Williams this weekend. AlphaTauri, with the upgrades they've brought in since Singapore as well, have done really well. So do expect them to be in and around the points as well, getting into Q2. Lawson's looking really good, but a load of confidence at the moment. Sonoda with that new deal is going to want to try and prove himself and claim himself for next year and things like that as well. So do expect the AlphaTauri drivers to be really close together. And onto the final two teams, Haas and Alfa Romeo. Most of the season they've pretty much been nowhere, and I would expect the same again. Expect the Haas, wouldn't be surprised if one of those cars, like they did in Suzuka, get into Q2. They can really light up those tyres really well, but they just fade away a lot in the race. They really do melt. And Magnussen has looked good in the last two races, and I did say after Singapore, with that performance, beating Hulkenberg across that weekend, it's just going to be really good for his confidence to now continue. Of course, having that unlucky moment with Perez in Suzuka and having that crash. But overall, he was having a really good race, finished behind his teammate. But in terms of qualifying, he seemed to have maybe grown that confidence back. And we're seeing the real Kevin Magnussen that we saw in 2022. The sprint weekend as well is going to be an interesting element. So don't forget about that happening this weekend as well. And there could be a chance to kind of throw some things up maybe, but for Red Bull I think it'll go pretty smoothly. Same with McLaren, but there's obviously the chance for Ferrari and Mercedes. If they come into the weekend with a good setup already, they could be in and around the podium fight. But I do expect McLaren to be the second quickest team this weekend. Overall, predictions are going to be quite tough to do with the sprint and the qualifying, but overall, I've got Max Verstappen on pole. I've got Norris in second, Piastri third, and I've got Perez in fourth place, just behind them. And when it comes race day, I expect Verstappen to win the race. And I've got Perez finishing in second place as well. And I've got Lando Norris in P3. Make sure you like, subscribe, bell notifications on. Follow the TikTok as well for other little content, maybe a little exclusive content as well. Some other stuff other than Formula 1 and football. So yeah, follow up. Make sure you stay tuned and have a great evening. Have a great day. Peace.